Hello and welcome to CineTracer 2 version 0.6.0. This has been a massive redesign from the ground up of CineTracer 2, and let's look at the new workflow. To start, we're going to go to New Project, and we have 3 maps that we can choose from, and now, like CineTracer 1, we have to pick a project name before we start. I'm going to call this Project 1. We can then choose a map. There's a white cyc, a bigger white cyc, and a very, very work in progress stage venue. Let's start with our white cyc here and click Create Project. We're going to get a loading screen and then load into the map. To start, we're in first person, like in previous builds. However, first person doesn't do very much right now. Everything has been converted to this new mode that we get to by hitting E. E brings us to editor mode, and you'll see that your mouse is out, and that movement is slightly different. It is still W, A, S, and D to move around like this. However, it is space and control to move up and down. So we are essentially flying now in this mode. To change where you're looking, you're going to hold right click, and you're going to move your mouse like this. This is very similar to the editor mode in CineTracer 1, and it's also very similar to the editor mode, transport, in Unreal Engine 5. If we hit tab, first we have the inventory, but second we have our controls. These are mostly up to date, and if you want to see a rough layout of what controls are available in the different modes now, I'm going to attempt to keep this up to date here as things progress. Most of the time they're written on screen, but things like movement are not. This is how we move around now. If we hit E again, we're going to drop down to first person, and we have gravity, and we can jump with space. But say we wanted to go up there, we would hit E, and now I can fly, hit E again, and I'm in first person. First person, again, doesn't do anything right now. Its tools have been converted to editor. However, first person will have some functionality in the future. So that's the new way of moving around in CineTracer 2. We're going to spend most of our time in editor mode, and this is going to allow us to fly and have our mouse. Next, we're going to hit tab, and we'll be back in our inventory system. It has been redesigned a little bit more, and we have subcategories, and we have our new actors. The metahumans will come back. These are stand-in actors. You can't change anything about them, but they do work really well for standing in. When you left-click something in the inventory, you're going to enter this mode where it's going to follow your mouse, and if you scroll your mouse wheel, you'll be able to rotate them, and if you left-click, it's going to place them. Now, this is new for CineTracer 2, but familiar for CineTracer 1. When something is selected, you get this gizmo. To select objects and deselect them, it's going to be left-click on them. So we left-click on them to select. Left-click in the world doesn't do anything. You have to re-left-click them to deselect them. When you left-click, you're going to get a gizmo. If you grab the arrow, they're going to follow that direction, including up with the blue one here. And if you grab the yellow sphere here and click and drag, you're going to get this type of movement. During this, you can also scroll the mouse wheel and they will rotate. This is especially good for moving objects that are going to be staying on the ground, which is pretty much the majority of them. Let's talk about adding another actor here and talk about multi-select. So we're going to deselect him, and the way that you can select multiple actors is pretty straightforward. We're going to left click and left click to add. This allows them to be moved together like this, including our yellow drag mode here. To deselect, however, it is again not clicking the background, not yet anyway. You're going to just click to deselect, click to deselect. Another way to select actors is using the new outliner. As of this build, these names mean pretty much nothing, but they do relate back to the actors in the scene. And you can select and deselect actors in the same way using the outliner, and it will correspond to clicking them in the real world over here. The real 3D world anyway. So we can use the outliner, use the gizmo, or we can click in the 3D world. With them selected, we can change from move mode to rotate mode. And this gizmo is a work in progress, but if you left click and drag like this, side to side only, they will rotate. And we're going to move back to move mode here and deselect our actors. So that's the basics of selecting actors and moving them around. And next we're going to move on to a new concept called scenes. Right now we're in scene 0 of this project. And if we like what we've done here, this is all we want, we can click save. This project has now been saved to the computer. And if we go to system and back to main menu, sit through a bit of a loading screen here. We go to load project. This project we just made is right here, and we can load it back in. So we don't have to go into the main menu to save anymore. And anytime that you hit the save button, it will save everything at once to the computer. Let's go ahead and add a new scene. We're now in scene 1. There's a scene 0 and a scene 1. We're in scene 1, and it just duplicated scene 0 basically. What we can do is move the actors to a new position like this, and maybe spawn in some new objects and build an entirely new scene. And we're going to just add one more chair like this. Again, if we like the results of this, we're going to hit save. And now scene 0 looks like this. And scene 1, again, looks like that. If we were to quit out and save in, we would have access to both of these scenes. So a scene, if you come from CineTracer 1, is essentially an entire CineTracer 1 project. We can just create many, many of them. And what's happening is it's completely deleting all the actors and then completely spawning them back in. And if we're working on simple projects, this is more than enough. You can work entirely with just scenes here, make a new one, save them, and you're good to go. But we're going to be moving on to the shot system now, which allows you to animate objects. So scene 0, again, is just the two of them. Scene 1 has some chairs and they've changed position. If we want to delete this scene, we can open up the shot list, which we're going to cover in more detail, and we can simply delete that shot. By doing that, we have deleted that scene because there was only one shot in that scene. That is how that works for now. But let's go into a little bit more depth of what this shot list system is all about. So before we get into the shot list system, we actually need to go over how cameras work in CineTracer 2 now. We're going to go to Tab, go to our equipment, click a camera, roughly place it here, and I'm just going to drag it into the air. With the camera selected, we can now click Pilot Camera at the top, and we take this camera over. It's the same controls to move around, and unlike in the past, you have your mouse during the camera mode. So we're going to hold right-click to be able to pan around, and now if you left-click in the 3D world, that is where the camera is going to focus. This is the new UI, work in progress for the cameras. You can smooth, change the zoom here, or if you click on these buttons here, you're going to get into increments of more common prime focal lengths. And we're going to go to 35 here. And if you go through the settings, they're very similar to before. And we have tilt, which is also controlled this way by just holding right click. And we have roll, should you want to get into some either vertical or sideways angles. I'm going to click the cookie icon, which I should have updated to reset, but it's this icon will reset that value there. So importantly now, again, left click is to focus. And if you hit enter, this is doing a lot, but let's hit enter. That's going to create a screenshot. If this UI is in your way, you can hit tab and it will go away. And these are still here. And we see we have some new controls here, except we don't have any shots, so they won't work. So to exit camera, I think I need another way as well, but we have this little back button here. We certainly could use a more, another way of leaving, but at the moment it's this back button. And we are back in editor. So if you remember, we took a screenshot, and if we open up our shot list now, that screenshot is here. This is shot 1. Doesn't say it yet, but it is. What we can do now is add a new shot. We'll see that it's empty, but the scene is the same. What I could do now is grab these actors and move them forward just a little bit. And let's go into the camera. And I'm going to zoom out. And then boom up a little bit. Just change my framing a little bit. I can hit tab to hide the UI. And I can hit enter. And we'll have created a new screenshot. Tab to show the UI again. And we're clicking back. And we'll see that that new screenshot is associated with scene 2. Or rather, shot 2. My bad. If we left click shot 0 or shot 1, depending on how you want to think about it, we're going to be able to animate between these two things here. And this is our new shot system, which allows animating the position of any actor like this. We can then add another shot and have them fly to the background. Not the most realistic thing in the world. I'm going to then look through the camera, focus on them, and I'm going to create another shot by hitting enter. So we have a couple different shots now, and we'll see that the actors' positions are going to be animated. And on top of that, the camera properties are going to be animated as well. So if we go into the camera and I hit tab to hide the UI, I can use J and L, which I think we could use more of a UI to explain this, but I'm hitting L and transitioning to that shot. I'm hitting L again, and they're kind of flying to the background. I know we don't have very much to orient us, but we are looking through the camera while doing these transitions between shots here. So this is the new scene and shot system. If this is too complicated, you don't need animations, you can 100% never use it. Just add new scenes, and you'll basically just always have one shot per scene. That's completely a fine way of using this. There are some restrictions around this, which we'll talk about as we get into doing lighting in here and lighting cues, but it is pretty powerful to be able to animate between the different shots here. And in time, we'll have different ways of animating between these states. But for now, we just have this, I think, 3-second or so transition that's happening. Again, at any point, if you click the save button, all of this will be saved to the computer.